The journey is conversations with ordinary people about stories of transformation and how we may have had setbacks in our life and how we persevered through those, how we've learned from those obstacles, and how they've maybe helped us on our path today. Well, welcome to The Journey. My name is Kevin Polkey, and I am the host of The Journey. And today we are going to continue our reflections on this concept of resilience. And last week we talked about the idea of resilience and a couple aspects of the importance of resilience. Today, I want to talk a little bit about um, this idea of where did that come from for me. As I've mentioned before, that when we, myself as a counselor, as a therapist, working at Four Corners, that when we have individuals that are struggling with a sense of being overwhelmed or feeling a sense of hopelessness, and especially chronic hopelessness, that this darkness will have a strength about it that will lie to people about their situation, that nothing's going to change the scenario, that it's always going to be this way. And that's where the despair seems to continue to grow and collect a sense of momentum. Working on intentionally developing resilience is really that when we find ourselves in an aspect of uh, a level of darkness, a level of feeling that a setback or an obstacle, um, that how do I turn this obstacle into an opportunity? How do I turn this obstacle into being able to see it as a growth opportunity versus that this is the way it's always going to be. Like we talked last week about having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And the fixed mindset is that if I have a setback, it's then this evidence that things are are worse now and are going to continue to get worse, or more will be taken away. Where a growth mindset is this idea that we're living in a in a state of abundance, and that right now with this setback, it's actually an opportunity for this to teach me something about myself that I wouldn't have had the opportunity if I wasn't going through it. A few years ago, I came up with for a workshop that I probably is one of my more sought after workshops, is 5 steps of developing resilience. I've played around with these steps, and at one point I had 7, and others I tried to shorten it. But for me, these 5 steps, in basically in the order that I'm going to share, are foundationally what I believe in and what I teach when I have the opportunity to work either with educators or students of all ages. Businesses, nonprofits, churches, about this idea of developing resilience. And number one, I believe that for us to keep in mind that step one is recognizing that we are called into a bigger story, that there is more going on here than just what's happening in the moment. I believe wholeheartedly in the teachings of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 step, that to focus on being present one day at a time. At the same time, paradoxically, recognizing that there is a bigger picture for me to know that I've invited into, a bigger story that I was created to be, not just myself, but all of us were created into being part of a bigger story, that we were created to be important to someone. Um, and throughout our lives, it's our responsibility to plant seeds of hope and possibility, of courage and of resilience. And just because we plant seeds doesn't mean that we are going to reap that harvest. So it's more about planting the seeds because we're called to a bigger story, even if we don't understand what that is at the time, that we just need to trust that process, that we're called into something bigger than ourselves. Number two, step two, is that we need to intentionally practice um, self-care. We know that self-care is an overused term right now, but what are you doing to take care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually? Exercising and fueling your body, nourishing your body and your mind and your emotions and your spirit in all four of these areas through proper amount of sleep, proper nutrition, proper hydration, proper movement, a balance between socializing and solitude, um, uh, working at mastering tasks as well as uh, being trying new things, to that when we are caught up in uh, being afraid about what might be going on, to reach out to help someone that may be less fortunate than us, and then also seek out stories, either written or digital forms, or interacting with people who have their own stories of resilience. So, number one, um, you are called to a bigger story, to a larger tapestry. Number two, practicing self-care physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Number three is cognitive reframing. This idea of how to learn how to turn obstacles into opportunities, that being able to differentiate between what is the objective part of this obstacle that's in front of me and what's the story that I'm telling myself, the subjective part. This idea of accepting the things that I cannot control and focusing on the things that I can control, and being able to navigate through that, and having the wisdom of differentiating between the things I can control and the things that I can't control, and having a belief that the larger the obstacle that may be in my way or I'm experiencing right now, maybe that is the greater opportunity for growth, or this is a new teacher for me to invest in at this time. This idea, number four, is giving myself permission to think outside the box, and that yes, there is a risk that something may not go right, but as long as I give myself permission to learn from mistakes, that when a mistake happens, that how do I analyze and assess what didn't go right, so that I can then learn from that, and then build on that for the next step. And number five, you have the opportunity to write the story that you are going to tell, that you are going to write the story that you are going to tell at a later date. That this idea of being able to that being able to intentionally be mindful about the story that you are going to um, share at some later point, is the story that you're writing right now, when things go well as when things don't go well. What are you doing in those cases when something goes well, and what are you doing when something is some type of setback? How you're recovering from that setback, how are you taking a bad situation and not making it worse, is also part of the story that will be told at a later date. I joke, but not so much joking, with parents, that how you're parenting the 10-year-old or the 12-year-old or the 15-year-old, um, to be mindful that these later, the children will remember how you were interacting with them over this thing. This incident will pass, but you will probably be reminded at some later date, at a Thanksgiving or some type of family get together, about how you handled that. What is the story that you want to be told at that time, is the story that you're writing right now. So once again, 5 steps of developing resilience. And resilience is the ability to turn to turn obstacles into opportunities to be able to recover from setbacks. Number one, you are called to a bigger story. There's a larger there's a larger story at hand than the moment that you're currently in. Number two, we need to practice self-care physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, developing all four domains of our life to be able to know and practice cognitive reframing, or turning those obstacles into opportunities by differentiating what is the objective part versus the subjective part, giving yourself permission to learn from mistakes, as well as being able um, to be mindful about the story that you're going to tell is the story that you're writing today. As always, I believe just by listening to this and pondering about some of these thoughts, that you will be able to start implementing these ideas and practicing them into your life so that you can be more resilient, so that when hard times come, you'll be more prepared. As always, I appreciate you being here and look forward to being with you next week.